My name is Gabriela Ramírez Arellano, and my husband and I own a Mexican restaurant in O'Fallon, Missouri. I also work at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I feel like my unique value add is bringing my authentic self. My life has given me the opportunity to have a lot of experiences, some good, some not so good. And I feel that that allows me to really connect with the people that I work with, the people that I help, the people that are a part of my life. So because I have a restaurant, I'm passionate about the food industry. I understand the needs that food entrepreneurs face, especially when we're talking about the lack of language access. So it's not just someone that wants to be in the food industry, but someone that also is having access issues because of language. So those are other barriers that maybe don't come front and center to the ecosystem currently in place. And so by being that voice and being that person that can bring up some of those issues, I'm able to help people a lot more. So my sink story, I don't even really know where to begin. I feel like I've had a couple of those where life is just kind of taking you down one road, and before you know it, you have to make a decision, right? You're stuck in that fork in the road. And I have been blessed definitely by by coincidence, I guess, sometimes, and by strategy, other times, taking the right road. We grew up very poor in a large family of immigrants in California. My dad ended up getting transferred to Missouri. Coming here from California in 1985 to Troy, Missouri was a total shock. People that had never seen a Mexican, at least not the ones I met, and they would always ask me, like, what are you? You know, what do you mix with? They never believed me that I was just Mexican. So that was an interesting adjustment, but we dealt with it. Being the oldest in my family, I was also the translator and the interpreter. So that came with a lot of responsibility at doctor's appointments, and I guess learning early on a lot of big words that I had no idea what they meant. I now had to learn what they meant so that I could help my mom and dad, I guess, navigate through life. So that also allowed me to see like the basic needs that people have that maybe other people aren't thinking of because the language is not an issue for them or technology is not an issue for them. First generation college student, I have no idea how I got to college because when I asked my mom, she's like, I don't know what you did. One day you just said, I'm going to Mizzou, and you were gone. So even that was a struggle though, right? Because they really didn't want me to go away because I was that reach to the community and that access for them. But I went, I had that conversation my first semester with one of my advisors, and he's like, you need to think about either a different major or don't come back because it was the first time I had ever been away, no parents. My house was very strict. I couldn't talk on the phone, I couldn't spend the night at anybody's house. So the culture of being a very tight-knit family kind of protected me, but it also isolated me. And then all of a sudden I'm at Mizzou with a ton of different people and a lot of different stuff. So definitely I did not focus on my studies. So I think that was like another sink story, right? Where he's basically saying, you're flunking out. What are you gonna do? I don't share this story often because I don't want my kids to to be like, oh, okay, well, mom almost flunked out. But it was definitely a learning experience. So I came back that semester just ready to figure out what I needed to do so that I could graduate. There was too much writing on, you know, oh, you think you're all that, you went to school, and then for me to fail. So I graduated from Mizzou. My ex-husband and I at that time moved to Michigan because he was working at General Motors. And it was a great 20 years out in the suburbs, living the country club life. I was very spoiled. And then divorce happened. And for me, that was another huge sink story because I had never worked. So even though I had a master's degree, I never had been in corporate America. And so that was kind of one of those things that was really like a ball and chain because he kind of held that over my head. Like, you never worked, you never did anything. You have kids, like nobody really will allow you to continue to live your life because you're already used almost, was like how I felt about myself. So I remember when I finally just said, hey, this divorce is gonna happen, even though that's not really what I had planned for my life, I was basically homeless. So my sister let me live at her house with the kids, and I had to apply for food assistance and I think even cash assistance. And part of that cash assistance meant I had to go to like the local Michigan Works to say, yes, I'm looking for a job, and I had to get help from a counselor to help me find a job. And it was crazy, and I really felt like, oh my gosh, this is the lowest point in my life, because when you're in that situation, people always say, how can I help you? What you need is money, right? You need money to put food on the table, you need money to get a place to live, you need money to have, I mean, I didn't even have a car, I had to borrow my sister's car. But that's not what people usually offer. They want to encourage you and all of that, right? So that was helpful later on, but in that immediate time, I really felt like I needed the money, and that's why I ended up applying for the cash assistance. So just mentally was like a huge shift in my mind. Like, I was just golfing last week, and now I'm here. Why didn't I save? Why didn't I plan better, right? So in retrospect now, I'm like big into financial planning and financial literacy. And I remember talking to the counselor at the Michigan Works office as she was trying to help me find a job, and she's like, well, what can you do? What skills do you have? And I told her I can speak Spanish, and I'm a professional Girl Scout volunteer. And I think she kind of giggled a little bit, and then the next thing I knew, 2 weeks later, she came to me and she's like, hey, Girl Scouts is hiring for Hispanic Initiative Coordinator. So it was like just amazing that I mean, I kind of said it like jokingly, like I have no skill set except those two things, and then here's a job that needs those two things. So through that process, it was very difficult, not just for me, but also for the girls, but I really felt like I didn't have a choice, right? So sometimes not having a choice either propels you to push forward more, or kind of just stops you in your tracks. And I think for my personality, like being at the very bottom, it continued to inspire me to keep going, because I always felt like there's way more that I could contribute to the world than to just be stuck here feeling sorry for myself. So then I finally started working, and I started trying to get my life together, but I had no credit. You know, there were all these little things that as a 40-something-year-old, you should have taken care of way before now. Especially when I had never worked, so I couldn't apply for unemployment. I mean, my Social Security is probably non-existent. So a lot of things that I had to learn really quickly, and I honestly was surprised by the things I was able to accomplish, just because my self-esteem, I think, was not where it needed to be. But when I finally started to realize, like, oh my gosh, I have this, I can do it, I think that really helped me a lot. And also, I moved to Detroit, and several people saw the talent that I had, and because I spoke Spanish, so here, you know, my only superpower was speaking Spanish. Because I spoke Spanish, they really came to me and said, hey, we need help with some of these initiatives in Southwest Detroit. So that was another time where I'm like, oh my gosh, my culture, my background, like all that's kind of coming together. And I can contribute to society, I can add value. So I started teaching entrepreneurship classes. And again, those life experiences that I had with my family and then with my previous divorce process really helped me connect with people and help them understand why these things were important to plan. And then it just kind of like reiterated to me why those things were important. So even though my job was to teach entrepreneurship, one of the first things we talked about when I met with clients was, what's your credit score? Do you have credit? Why not? Do you have a bank account, right? So these things that personally you need to get together before you can have a successful business, especially if you plan to grow the business and apply for a loan later on. So I say all of that to say that my life has been a series of sink and swim stories. And I'm glad that I had those experiences, because I feel that they allow me not just to connect better with clients and to understand entrepreneur struggles better, but also because I feel like now I can understand people and I can contribute to society. I think it's hard to pinpoint the specific strategies, but the first one that I really used was I needed to be an example and a role model for my children. So I had to keep going and making sure that I took care of myself so I could keep going, whether it was finding a job or figuring out how I was gonna put food on the table. During that time, the girls were about to go to college, so that was a whole nother stress piece. But really concentrating on, okay, you need to breathe because you need to figure how this is gonna work. So that could mean for different people, different things, whether it's reading or exercise or whatnot. For me, it was exercise and a lot of breathing. Another thing was I was really involved in the community, and it really helped me see that no matter how bad I thought I had it, there were always people that were struggling more than I was and that they needed my help. So being able to help other people also really helped me to continue to go forward, because the more I got better in my financial, economic, and housing situation, the more that I could help other people. And that was kind of like what kind of drove that part. And then I think that the third part for me was that I knew that it wasn't going to be forever. It's like, I'm going through this right now, but this is not my life. I guess it goes back to the initial one, because if I continue to do nothing, then yes, this will be my life. But what can I do every single day? Sometimes it was just reading. How can I read a self-help book to help me understand like why I feel this way, or maybe get over some of the trauma of the divorce and whatnot. But just doing one thing every day to be a better person, to be in a better situation. Whether it was, if it was something I was working on my credit, then what can I do to fix my credit today? Can I call somebody? Can I, pay off a loan or whatnot? So continue to move forward. Don't stay stagnant. Help other people, because the more that you can help them and it kind of feeds your soul, the better that you can help them later on when your position improves. And then the third part was do one thing every day to be in a better position. My name is Gabriela Ramírez Arellano, and I'm a dreamer and a disruptor.